The massive chamber stretched beyond what human eyes could easily comprehend. Floating crystals pulsed with soft blue light, while insect-like creatures clicked and buzzed in languages that had existed before Earth's sun was born. Energy beings danced through the air like living lightning, and mechanical forms hummed with ancient wisdom. Admiral Kim Minho tried to keep his face calm as he walked across the polished floor toward the center of the room. Behind him, Dr. Park Ji-won clutched her datapad so tightly her knuckles had turned white. Scientist Lee Summon whispered quietly to herself, probably trying to memorize every detail of what they were seeing. This was the Galactic Council, and they were the first humans ever to stand before it. "The species from the third planet shows promise," a voice echoed through the chamber. The translator in Minho's ear made the alien words sound almost normal, but he could hear the strange tones underneath. The speaker was Velnoth, a being that looked like it was made of glass and starlight. "Their vessels have reached their moon. Their mathematics work, even if they are simple." Minho had spent months preparing for this moment. Earth's best scientists had worked day and night to understand the alien technology that had brought them here. A small probe had appeared in Earth's solar system 6 months ago, carrying an invitation that changed everything humanity thought they knew about the universe. "We have watched your species for some time," continued Velnoth. His form shifted and sparkled as he spoke. "You build tools, you ask questions, you reach for the stars even when it seems impossible." Around the chamber, other beings watched the humans with what might have been curiosity. Some looked friendly enough, while others seemed less interested in welcoming new neighbors. One creature in particular, covered in what looked like black armor, kept making harsh clicking sounds that the translator couldn't handle. "Your offer is generous," Minho said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Humanity would be honored to learn from civilizations as advanced as yours." Dr. Park stepped forward slightly. "Our people have always been curious about what lies beyond our world. We've dreamed of meeting others like ourselves." "Others like yourselves," repeated a new voice. This one came from the armored creature, and even through the translator, it sounded angry. "Commander Tekvar speaks for the Corvani," Velnoth explained quickly. "They have concerns about bringing new species into our community too quickly." The Corvani commander moved closer, and Minho could see that the armor was actually the creature's skin. Red eyes glowed behind a face that looked designed for war. "Young species are dangerous," Tekvar said. "They fight. They break things. They do not understand the balance we have built over millions of years." "Every species was young once," replied Velnoth. "The humans have shown they can work together. They have stopped fighting among themselves long enough to reach for space. This shows wisdom." Lee Salmon couldn't help herself. "How many species are part of the council?" she asked. 12 civilizations representing thousands of worlds," answered Velnoth. "Some have existed since before your star was born. Others joined us only a few million years ago." The numbers made Minho's head spin. Humanity had been proud of their few hundred years of real science, and these beings talked about millions of years like it was nothing. "We offer your species a great gift," Velnoth continued. "The secret of faster-than-light travel. With this technology, you can visit other worlds, meet other species, and take your place among the stars." The chamber fell silent. Even the constant background humming seemed to quiet down. This was the moment that would change everything for humanity. But Commander Tekvar wasn't finished. "This is a mistake," he said, his voice growing louder. "I have seen what happens when young species get power too quickly. They become problems that take centuries to solve." "The vote has been called," announced another voice. Around the chamber, lights began to pulse in different colors. Some beings raised appendages, others glowed brighter, and a few made sounds that the translator turned into simple yes or no votes. Minho watched as the lights counted up the decision. His heart pounded so hard, he was sure the aliens could hear. Everything humanity had ever dreamed about depended on what happened in the next few seconds. "The decision is made," Velnoth announced. "By a vote of 8-4, humanity is welcome to join the Galactic Council. We will share the gift of star travel with your species." Dr. Park actually gasped out loud. Lee Soman started to smile so wide it looked like her face might break. Minho felt his knees go weak with relief and excitement. However, Velnoth continued, you will start slowly. One ship at first, then more as you prove you can handle the responsibility. We have learned that patience prevents problems. As the session ended and the various beings began to leave the chamber, Commander Thekvar approached the human delegation. I hope I am wrong about your species, he said, but I have been alive for a very long time, and I have seen this story before. Young species with new power often become something their creators never expected. The humans left the council chamber with humanity's future in their hands, unaware that they carried something far more dangerous than anyone realized. 6 months had passed since humanity joined the galactic community, and Chief Engineer Choi Do-hyun stood in what used to be the most advanced weapons facility in Corvani space. Now it looked like a tornado had hit it, with human modifications scattered across every work surface. This cannot be right, growled Commander Thekvar, watching a young human take apart a plasma rifle that had taken his people 300 years to perfect. The weapon lay in pieces on the metal table, its glowing parts spread out like the insides of some alien creature. Do-hyun wiped his hands on a dirty cloth and grinned. Oh, it's right. See this part here? He pointed to a curved piece that still hummed with energy. You're losing more than half your power to heat. All that energy just goes to waste. The Corvani commander's red eyes burned brighter. His people were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Their weapons were perfect killing machines that had been used to win wars for thousands of years. And this human child was telling him they were broken. Dr. Han Minju figured out the math, Do-hyun continued, not noticing how angry the alien was getting. If we redirect the waste heat back into the main power core, we can almost double the weapon's strength. Plus, it fires faster and needs less energy to run. Behind them, other humans worked on different projects. The facility buzzed with activity as Earth's engineers improved everything they could get their hands on. What had once been a quiet, orderly workplace now sounded like a construction site. Thekvar picked up his modified weapon and tested it on the practice range. The blast that came out was brighter and stronger than anything his rifle had ever produced. It cut through the target like it was made of paper instead of battle-grade metal. Impossible, he whispered. Meanwhile, in the medical bay of the space station, Dr. Yang Nayoung was causing her own kind of trouble. The Valarian disease had killed millions of beings across the galaxy for over 1,000 years. The best alien doctors had tried everything they could think of, but the sickness always came back stronger. The problem isn't the disease, Nayoung explained to a group of alien medical experts. The problem is that you're only treating the symptoms. The real cause is hidden deeper. She showed them her research on the large screen. Charts and numbers filled the display, showing things that the alien doctors had never thought to look for. Your treatments make the sick beings feel better for a while, but they don't kill the thing that's actually making them sick. It's like putting a bandage on a cut without cleaning out the dirt first. Dr. Zalthon, a being whose people had been fighting this disease longer than humans had existed, studied the data. You found this pattern in just 2 weeks? Actually, it took 3 weeks, Nayoung said with a small smile. I had to learn your medical equipment first. The cure she developed didn't just treat the Valarian disease, it completely destroyed. Within a month, the sickness that had plagued the galaxy for centuries was gone forever. But the real shock came from the artists. Lee Soman had always loved to paint, but she never expected her hobby to cause problems in space. She was working on a simple picture of Earth's sunset when Ambassador Velnoth found her in the station's common area. What is this? The glass-like being asked, his form flickering with colors she had never seen before. Just a painting of home, Soman replied. Nothing special, but Velnoth was changing. His usually calm light was pulsing faster, and something that looked like liquid was forming at the edges of his crystalline body. Other aliens in the area had stopped what they were doing to stare at the artwork. We have not felt this sensation in millions of years, Velnoth whispered. What did you call it? Sadness, I guess? Or maybe homesickness? Soman looked confused. Don't your people miss home when you travel? The ethereal beings had given up emotions long ago as part of their evolution into pure energy. They thought feelings made thinking unclear and caused too many problems. But looking at Soman's simple painting of a yellow sun setting over a blue world, they remembered what they had lost. Back in his private chambers, Velnoth reviewed the reports that kept piling up on his desk. Every day brought new examples of human innovation that shouldn't have been possible. The weapons improvements were just the beginning. Humans had solved medical problems that had existed since before their species learned to walk. They had created art that moved beings who hadn't felt emotions in geological ages. Their scientists were asking questions that made the galaxy's greatest minds rethink everything they thought they knew. Dr. Martinez and Dr. Okonkwo have done what? Velnoth asked his assistant, reading the latest report. They have created a device for instant communication across any distance, sir. They say the physics was actually quite simple once they stopped assuming it was impossible. Faster-than-light communication had been the holy grail of galactic science. For millions of years, every species had tried and failed to make it work. The humans had cracked it in 6 weeks because nobody had told them it couldn't be done. Velnoth dimmed his lights and considered what he was seeing. The council had expected to guide and teach a primitive species. Instead, they had unleashed something that was teaching them. For the first time in his million-year existence, the ancient being felt something that might have been fear. The darkness between stars had been their home for 50,000 years. The Drakmor had slept in the cold void, waiting for the galaxy to forget the terror of their name. Now they were awake and they were hungry. Captain Seo Junho stood on the bridge of the human destroyer Indomitable, watching the long-range sensors with growing concern. The alien ships that had just appeared on the edge of known space were unlike anything in the galactic databases. They were massive, dark, and they moved like living things. "Sir, we're getting reports from the outer colonies," Lieutenant Kang Yuna said from her station. 3 Valerian settlements have gone completely dark. No communications, no emergency signals, nothing. Junho studied the tactical display. Each of the alien ships was the size of a small moon, covered in what looked like black armor that seemed to absorb light itself. Worse, there were dozens of them, and more were appearing every hour. "What do we know about these things?" he asked. "Very little, sir. Admiral Kim sent us everything the Council could find." Yuna pulled up the ancient records on her screen. "They're called the Drakmor. According to these files, they conquered half the galaxy before mysteriously disappearing. That was before humans even existed. The records were incomplete and terrifying. The Drakmor were described as perfect predators, beings that had evolved specifically to hunt and destroy other species. They used living ships that could repair themselves and weapons that seemed to think for themselves. When they had ruled before, entire civilizations had simply vanished without a trace. "Sir, incoming transmission from the lead alien vessel," the communications officer reported. "Put it on screen." The creature that appeared was a nightmare made real. It stood nearly 3 meters tall, with black skin that seemed to shift and move like liquid metal. Its eyes were pure white without pupils, and when it spoke, rows of sharp teeth were visible in its mouth. "We are the Drakmor," it said in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We have returned to reclaim what is ours. Your species will serve us or join the silence." The transmission ended before Junho could respond. "That went well," muttered Yuna. But Junho was already thinking. The Drakmor expected to find the same frightened civilizations they had left behind 50,000 years ago. They had no idea that humanity was now part of the galaxy, and humans had never learned to be properly afraid of anything. "Get me Admiral Kim," he ordered, "and start preparing the boarding pods." "Sir?" Yuna looked confused. "Boarding pods? Those ships are huge. We'd need an army to take even one of them." "Then it's a good thing we brought one," Junho replied with a grin that would have worried anyone who knew him well. The first Drakmor attack came 3 days later. Their massive bioships moved toward the human colony on Kepler 442b like black storm clouds, expecting to find the usual pattern of panic and surrender that had worked for them for millions of years. Instead, they found Captain Seo Junho and his fleet waiting for them. The humans didn't try to fight the Drakmor ships directly. That would have been suicide. Instead, they did something the ancient predators had never encountered before. They got creative. While the Drakmor focused on the human destroyers dancing around their formation, they didn't notice the tiny boarding pods that slipped through their defenses. The pods were so small that the alien sensors dismissed them as space debris. Lieutenant Kang Yuna led the first boarding party into the belly of a Drakmor bioship. The inside was like being swallowed by some massive beast, with walls that pulsed like a heartbeat and corridors that seemed to breathe. "This is really disgusting," she whispered into her comm unit. "Focus on the mission," came Junho's voice. "Find their control center and plant the charges." The Drakmor had never faced boarding parties before. In their millions of years of conquest, no species had been crazy enough to try to board their living ships. They had no defenses against enemies who were already inside. What happened next became legend throughout the galaxy. The humans didn't just plant explosives. They reprogrammed the bioship's living computers, turning the vessel's own systems against them. They released engineered viruses that made the ships sick. They even convinced some of the ship creatures to switch sides by promising them better food and medical care. Within hours, the first Drakmor fleet was not just defeated but completely destroyed. The ancient predators found themselves being hunted by prey that refused to act like prey should. But Admiral Kim Minho wasn't satisfied with just winning a battle. He had read the old records too, and he knew that the Drakmor would keep coming until they were stopped permanently. "Track them," he ordered his fleet. "Follow them back to wherever they came from." "Sir, that's deep space. Unknown territory. We have no idea what we'll find out there," his second-in-command warned. "Then we'll find out together," Kim replied. "The Drakmor ruled through fear for millions of years. Time to show them what fear really looks like." The chase lasted for weeks, with human ships pursuing the retreating Drakmor deeper into space than any galactic species had ever gone. What they found there would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about the ancient predators. The hunters had become the hunted, and they were learning that humans were very, very good at hunting. 3 years had passed since the Drakmor defeat, and Dr. Park Ji-won stood at the observation deck of New Harmony Station, watching something that shouldn't have been possible. Ships from over 100 different worlds were docking at humanity's latest creation, a massive space station that served as both a meeting place and research center. The station itself was beautiful in a way that made alien visitors stop and stare. Humans had designed it not just to work well, but to inspire hope. Gardens from dozens of worlds grew in the outer rings, creating a living rainbow that could be seen from space. "We should have seen this coming," Ambassador Velnoth said to his aide as they watched the busy docking bays below. His crystalline form flickered with what might have been worry. "Look at them. They don't just solve problems. They make everything better." In the main conference room, human negotiator Lim Seojin was doing something that had been considered impossible for 3,000 years. The Cathari and the Veltaran had been at war for so long that most beings had forgotten what they were fighting about. Their hatred ran so deep that even being in the same room usually led to violence. "The war started over mining rights to the Kalos system," Seojin said calmly, looking at representatives from both species. "But that was 3,000 years ago. The system is empty now, the resources are gone. You're fighting over nothing." The Cathari delegate, a tall being covered in blue scales, hissed angrily. "Our ancestors died for those rights. Their sacrifice means something." "Of course it does," Seojin agreed. "But wouldn't the best way to honor them be to make sure no one else has to die for the same cause?" Within 2 hours he had done what centuries of Galactic Council meetings had failed to achieve. The two species signed a peace treaty that didn't just end their war, but created a partnership that would benefit both of their peoples. "How does he do that?" the Veltaran ambassador asked Velnoth later. "He makes it seem so simple." "That's the problem," Velnoth replied quietly. "For them, it is simple." Meanwhile, in the engineering section of the station, Choi Do-hyun was putting the finishing touches on his latest project. The Stargate network had been a dream of galactic civilization for millions of years. The idea was to create permanent doorways between star systems, allowing instant travel across the galaxy. The council had spent countless resources trying to build even one working gate. The humans had built 50 of them in 6 months. The math isn't actually that hard, Do-hyun explained to a group of alien engineers who had come to study his work. You just have to stop thinking about space and time as separate things. Once you realize they're part of the same system, the rest falls into place. The aliens looked at the equations on his workspace display with expressions of complete confusion. These were calculations that their greatest minds had worked on for millennia, and this human was treating them like basic arithmetic. We've been overthinking it, Dr. Han Minju added, joining the conversation. Sometimes the simplest solution is the right one. But it wasn't just technology that humans were revolutionizing. Dr. Yang Na-young had established medical centers on dozens of worlds, treating diseases that had been considered incurable for thousands of years. She didn't just heal individual patients. She trained local doctors, shared her knowledge freely, and created systems that prevented diseases from spreading in the first place. Prevention is always better than treatment, she explained to a gathering of galactic medical experts. Instead of waiting for people to get sick, we stopped them from getting sick at all. The results were stunning. Plagues that had killed billions were becoming extinct. Genetic disorders that had plagued entire species for generations were being fixed before children were even born. Na-young's medical revolution was saving more lives every day than some civilizations had in their entire histories. On the military, Side Admiral Kim Min-ho had created something that made the old Galactic Council peacekeeping forces look like children playing with toys. His fleets didn't just respond to conflicts, they prevented them. We study the patterns, he explained to Commander Thekvar during one of their regular meetings. Wars don't just happen randomly. There are always warning signs, resource shortages, political tensions, economic problems. We identify these issues before they become conflicts and help fix them. The Corvani commander, once the galaxy's most feared warrior, now found himself learning from humans who had turned war itself into a science. Your species fights wars by preventing them from starting, he said with something that might have been admiration. It's efficient. It's also cheaper, Kim replied with a smile, and fewer people die. But perhaps the most unsettling change was happening to the galaxy's oldest civilizations. Species that had guided galactic politics for millions of years were finding themselves politely pushed aside by humans who seemed to do everything better, faster, and with more compassion. They don't try to replace us, Velnoth observed during a private council meeting. They just make us irrelevant by being so much better at everything we thought we were good at. In the depths of space, terraforming ships crewed by humans and aliens working together were turning dead worlds into gardens. Communication networks linked every inhabited system in the galaxy. Peace was breaking out everywhere. The humans had been unleashed for only 3 years, and they had already begun to reshape the fundamental nature of galactic civilization itself. 5 years had passed since humanity's first contact with the galaxy, and Ambassador Velnoth sat alone in his chambers, staring at reports that told an impossible story. The galaxy still had the same stars, the same worlds, the same basic laws of physics, but everything else had changed. Outside his window, human ships worked alongside vessels from every major civilization to build something new. Dr. Lee Soman's latest project was a communication array that would allow instant messages to be sent anywhere in the galaxy. What the Council had tried to build for millions of years, she had designed in her spare time. Personal log, final entry. Velnoth spoke to his recording device, his crystalline form dim with what humans might have called sadness. When we first encountered humanity, I believed we were uplifting a primitive species to join us as junior partners in our ancient civilization. He paused, watching Captain Seo Junho's fleet return from the Outer Rim. They had been investigating reports of a new threat, some ancient weapon that had been dormant for eons. Within a week, they had not only found it, but had convinced it to become a peaceful guardian instead of a destroyer. Somehow humans had negotiated with a machine intelligence that had been trying to kill everything for 1,000,000 years. Instead, Velnoth continued, we unleashed a force of nature that has made us all obsolete. Not through conquest or war, but through pure, unstoppable innovation and determination. In the medical bay of the station, Dr. Yang Nayung was finishing her shift. Her hospital network now covered thousands of worlds, and diseases that had been the stuff of nightmares were becoming medical curiosities that young doctors only read about in history books. She had trained thousands of alien healers, shared her knowledge freely, and created systems that could spot and stop plagues before they even started. Today, she had received news that the last case of Kroger's syndrome had been cured. The disease had killed billions over the centuries, and now it was extinct, just like dozens of other illnesses that humans had simply decided should no longer exist. The Drakmor fear us now, Velnoth said to his recording. The ancient predators that once ruled half the galaxy hide in the dark spaces between stars, afraid to show themselves. Admiral Kim Minho's fleets patrol the void not to hunt them, but to offer them medical care and counseling. Even our greatest enemies have become patients. The transformation hadn't been violent or dramatic. It had been gradual, like water wearing away stone. Every problem that arose, humans solved. Every conflict that started, they ended. Every impossible thing that others said couldn't be done, they did. Engineer Choi Do-hyun had just finished installing the last Stargate in his network. Ships could now travel instantly between any 2 points in the galaxy. Trade routes that had taken months now took minutes. Entire civilizations that had been isolated by distance were suddenly neighbors. We don't even govern ourselves anymore, Velnoth observed. When the council meets, we ask the humans what they think we should do. When problems arise, we wait for human solutions. We have become advisors to our own former students. But the most remarkable change was in the humans themselves. Success hadn't made them arrogant or cruel. Instead, it seemed to have made them more determined to help others. Every breakthrough they made was shared freely. Every victory they won was used to lift up those around them. Lim Seojin had just finished mediating another peace treaty, this time between species that had been enemies since before Earth-Sun had formed. He made it look easy, the way he found common ground where others saw only differences. His diplomatic methods were being taught in schools across the galaxy. They rule by making themselves indispensable. Velnoth continued his recording. Every disease cured, every war prevented, every impossible dream made real. The galaxy runs on human innovation now. Human compassion, human determination to make everything better. In her laboratory, Dr. Park Ji-won was working on her latest project. She had discovered that it was possible to reverse the aging process, in most species, potentially granting everyone in the galaxy immortality if they wanted it. But instead of announcing it immediately, she was carefully studying the social and psychological effects. She wanted to make sure the gift wouldn't become a curse. I have lived for over 1 million years. Velnoth's voice grew quiet. I have seen civilizations rise and fall, watched stars be born and die. But I have never seen anything like humanity. They don't just adapt to the universe. They make the universe adapt to them. The final reports were coming in now. The galaxy's crime rate had dropped to nearly zero. Poverty was becoming extinct. Wars were so rare that military academies were being converted into schools for diplomacy and engineering. Even the weather on most worlds had been improved through careful terraforming. The galaxy belongs to humanity now, Velnoth concluded, not because they took it, but because they made it better. They made us all better. Perhaps this is how evolution was always supposed to work. Perhaps we needed them more than they needed us. He turned off the recording and looked out at the stars one more time. They seemed brighter now, more alive, more full of hope than they had ever been in his ancient memory. The humans had been unleashed and the galaxy would never be the same. But for the first time in 1 million years, Velnoth thought that might be exactly what the universe had been waiting for.